Baking while cruising can be a bit challenging, especially when it comes to mixing up thick batters or doughs without any electrical tools. But it doesn't have to be too difficult. That is, if you have the right tools. Hi, I'm Carolyn Sherlock, and on this episode of the Boat Galley podcast, I'll share my favorite galley gear that makes mixing ingredients by hand just that much easier. Now, this episode of the Boat Galley podcast is sponsored by Marmara Imports. Their hand-loomed, fair trade, organic cotton Turkish towels are highly absorbent, dry quickly, fold flat, and are soft and luxurious, perfect for your life aboard. Use coupon code PODCAST10 for 10% off any order of $40 or more. MarmaraImports.com, more than a towel. And be sure to find Marmara at the Bay Bridge Boat Show in Stevensville, Maryland in April of 2022. Baking in most boat galleys means using a mixing spoon or maybe a whisk. No electric mixer, no blender, no food processor, no bread machine. Yikes! Is it even possible to make baked goods and other treats without these? Well, of course it is. Our grandmothers, or maybe our great-grandmothers, depending on your age, did it. I've done it for years. The right tools make all the difference. Still, it's not easy to search out tools that are truly designed for hand mixing instead of being an adjunct to electric mixers. Here, I'll talk about what I use, and I'll tell you why those items are particularly suited for hand mixing. And in the show notes, you'll find links for these items to Amazon. And by the way, when I lived on land between boats, I found that I almost never used my electric beater or my blender. Since I had the tools for easy hand mixing, I just did them by hand. There was a lot less to clean up, I used less electricity, and it's good exercise. Okay, the first thing that you need for hand mixing is a bowl that's designed to be gripped in your hand, not one designed to be used with an electric mixer. For mixing up cakes, cookies, brownies, and the like, my number one favorite, hands down, is the OXO batter bowl. It has a non-slip bottom and a handle to hold it while you're mixing, both of which keep it from sliding around. The pour spout is also helpful when transferring the batter to a pan, and it's made of a high-quality plastic, so it's unlikely to break and it won't be noisy when stowed, even on a rough passage. It's a 2-quart bowl. Now, if you prefer a set of bowls that includes a larger 5-quart size, and you have the room to store it, there's a really similar 3-bowl set also made by OXO, and it's also designed for hand mixing. Instead of a handle, these have a wide lip on one side to grab onto, and the same non-slip bottom and a pour spout. If you like to tuck your mixing bowl under your arm, sort of on your hip, as you're beating batter, these bowls are absolutely perfect. The 3 set includes a 1.5 quart, a 3-quart, and a 5-quart bowl. And each of those can be purchased individually. Now, the next thing you need is a good mixing spoon. And I'll admit to being spoiled when it comes to my mixing spoon. I have 2 sterling silver hand mixing spoons that have been passed down in my family from my great-grandmother, and I love them. When I recently went to buy a hand mixing spoon for a granddaughter, I discovered that similar spoons are hard to find now. Most of what are being sold as mixing spoons are wooden spoons. But wooden spoons aren't really designed for mixing heavy batters and doughs, and trying to hold one can get tiring. With heavy doughs, wooden spoons can also split, so if you do use one, be sure that it's a sturdy one. The other popular materials out there are silicone and nylon. Nylon spoons simply aren't stiff enough to mix any sort of heavy dough. The handle either bends or it actually breaks. And silicone spoons are just silicone over a thin metal core, and again, aren't designed for heavy batter. I don't recommend them for your primary mixing spoon. What I do recommend, that's a stainless steel spoon. And I prefer ones that don't have a round handle. It's hard to get a good grip on a round handle to keep it from twisting and flipping around as you mix thick batter. I like one that typically is 8 to 10 inches long. Using a longer spoon in any sort of thick dough gets just tiring to keep a good grip on the handle. The dough gets too much leverage on it. And if you choke down on the handle, you end up trying to get a grip on the narrower portion of the handle, which is also tiring on your hand. Now, I like one-piece construction, as connection points are likely to fail with stresses of mixing heavier doughs and batters, and the joints are places for bacteria to breed. I've looked all over the internet for what I would consider the perfect hand mixing spoon, and haven't found the ideal one yet. There's one that I put in the show note links there that's from Herald Imports and sold on Amazon. It's close. I wish it had a slightly more ergonomic handle, but this works the best of anything I've found. Now, the other thing that I actually really like is called a Danish dough whisk. Now, it's not a whisk like you're used to seeing, like for beating up eggs and stuff like that. This is designed for using with heavy dough and is a very thick wire and just kind of a big loop pattern. It's not at all like a regular whisk that you're seeing. I've put a link to these. Highly recommend it. I use them for making bread, cakes, brownies, everything like that, and really like it. Although I still do use that stainless steel mixing spoon at the same time. The next thing that you've got to have is a good scraper. You want to get everything out of the bowl and into the pan. We've got silicone scrapers, handheld scrapers, all of those really work well. The silicone ones are much better for actually getting the last bits and so forth out. Okay, that's going to be it for this episode of the Boast Galley podcast. I hope you find it helpful as you're planning your life aboard and planning to make all those special treats. Seriously, life does not need to change, and what you eat doesn't need to change because you're living on a boat. Truly, you can bake great stuff even without all the electrical appliances. If you found this episode of the Boat Galley podcast helpful, please tell your friends about it and be sure to subscribe in your favorite podcast app. Thanks.